Let me shift gears, so to speak, just a little bit. What happened this morning, late this morning, also is of importance, I think. And the first target was the state of Georgia. What happened was the Justice Department, Merrick Garland, Attorney General, announced this federal lawsuit that was filed today against the state of Georgia over these insane, racist, Christian fascist voting restrictions put in place by the Georgia legislature that federal authorities say, and you know this, or you should, I know this because I live here, these voting restrictions are purposefully targeted against African Americans, people of color in general. And this is the first major action by Joe Biden's administration to confront head-on these efforts encouraged by the Orange Vomit, who squats at his country club at Bedminster, New Jersey now, to limit election turnout, to deny people, American citizens, the right to vote because of their race, color of their skin, their ethnic background, what have you. In other words, pure, unadulterated fascism. So the legal challenge that was announced today by the Justice Department, it takes aim specifically at this bullshit thing called the Georgia's Election Integrity Act. Election integrity. Only fascists have the nerve to identify something as an integrity act when it's designed to disintegrate the power of democracy. It's just unbelievable. That was passed back in March by this Republican Christian fascist-led state legislature and signed into law the same day by this punk-ass Christian fascist moron who is the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, who every time he talks, he seems to me to have the intelligence of a gently stewed rhubarb stalk. I mean, this guy is beyond stupid. He makes George Bush look like a Rhodes Scholar, for God's sake. But the law, the Georgia Election Integrity Act, imposes new limits on the use of absentee ballots, makes it a crime for anybody, any volunteer, to offer food or water to voters waiting at polling stations. And it is so rigged here in Georgia that the polling stations involved are not in white neighborhoods. Are you shitting me? In predominantly white areas? There's an abundance of voting machines in polling stations. But in polling districts, in areas of polling stations for people of color or African Americans, there might be 5 voting machines instead of 15, and there might be 1 polling station, whereas if this were a white neighborhood, there would be 10 polling stations. So black folk are forced to stand online, in some instances, all day, 10, 12 hours, just to vote. And if I or any volunteer sees people standing online in the Georgia sun and approach them with a bottle of water, now we can go to prison, jail. It's a felony to offer food or water to people who've been standing online for 6, 7, 8, 10 hours because the voting machines are so limited to people in those areas. I mean, this is insanity, for Christ's sake. The Election Integrity Act in this state also handed greater control over election administration to state legislatures. And the state legislatures who passed this garbage assumed they were going to be Christian fascists in control permanently. So they will decide about election integrity. If it's a close election, they can declare the whole goddamn thing was a fraud and then try to get people to come out and vote a second time or a third time. So the action by the Justice Department this morning is so necessary because these Christian fascist-led state governments around the country have been trying to impose these voting restrictions because Joe Biden kicked this rotten, filthy pig Donald Trump to the curb last November. And the filthy pig Trump has spent months waging this insane effort by his now suspended from practicing law lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and other scum to try to discredit the result of last November's election, making all these allegations and lies of widespread voter fraud and encouraging people to violence. See, last November here in Georgia, black voters helped drive record turnout for the presidential election and consequently gave the state to Joe Biden. He became the first Democratic nominee for president to win the state in almost 30 years. Oh, those damn coloreds, right? Attorney General Merrick Garland, in announcing the lawsuit, said, quote, Georgia experienced record voter turnout and participation rates in the 2020 election cycle. This is cause for celebration. And instead, end quote, instead, these white devils, these Christian fascists, they're not Jews, folks. They're not Muslims. They're not Buddhists. They're not Hindus. These are white male Christians who decided to pass a bill whose provisions make it harder or difficult or impossible for people to vote. And as Garland said, the federal complaint alleges that the state of Georgia enacted those restrictions to deny or abridge the right to vote on the basis of race and color, end quote. No shit. Now, our just absolutely asinine, dorky little governor here, the Christian fascist Brian Kemp, responded today on Twitter. And he said that this federal lawsuit comes from, get this, quote, lies and misinformation spread by Biden administration and other Democrats. Lies and misinformation? You creepy little son of a bitch, what are you talking about? He went on, tweeting, quote, now they are weaponizing the U.S. Department of Justice to carry out their far left agenda that undermines election integrity and empowers federal government overreach in our democracy. What monumental, vomitous bullshit. I mean, to even say that far left agenda to making sure that people have the right to vote? Yes, to a Christian fascist like Brian Kemp and the members of the now dead Republican Party across the country. Yeah, this is far left stuff, insisting that everybody has a right to vote. I'm sure that's what they considered it in Nazi Germany and fascist Spain and fascist Italy. Same thing. And here we are in proto-fascist America, or crypto-fascist, neo-fascist America. It's an assault by the far left agenda types in this country. Jesus. Catch your breath, Malloy. I am so relieved. I'm so glad that this lawsuit by the Justice Department, not the ACLU, not this organization or that organization, but the goddamn Justice Department, by the Attorney General of the United States, I am so relieved that this lawsuit has been filed. Now, it's going to take time, isn't it, to work its way through the courts, of course. And I'm hoping, I don't know this to be the case, and I didn't hear this at the press briefing this morning, but I'm hoping that they're also asking for a restraining order or an injunction, whatever the proper legal term is, to prevent the enforcement or the implementation of this new law here in Georgia until it can be adjudicated. I hope that is part of this. Because if it's not, then this dumb ass governor of ours and these Christian fascist white men who run the legislature are going to double down. They're going to try to, in any way they can, to steal the next election, because it is a given now that the state of Georgia is going to remain Democrat unless there is more trickery and chicanery and double dealing and lying and cheating by the Christian fascists. Now, in addition to this, and I'm very grateful for this too, Merrick Garland said he has also directed the Justice Department to establish a task force to bolster efforts to protect election workers from abuse and death threats. And the irony here, this would include our Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and his family, whose lives were threatened by these racist pig slime that run around in their little boy uniforms pretending like they're militia groups. Raffensperger and his whole family, their lives were threatened. Spokespeople for the Secretary of State's office here, who affirmed Joe Biden's win, also had their lives threatened. So it's about time a special task force was put together, as Merrick Garland said today he was doing, to investigate, find these rotten little bastards and arrest them and prosecute them and throw them under a jail someplace. Now, these accounts of these intimidations and threats by the white pigs in this society are on the rise. So it is definitely time that this kind of crap, these kinds of threats, this cowardly little boy shit that these punk-ass militia types constantly do. It's their way of making their penises longer, I guess. Hey, boys, it won't work. Trust me, a little eunuchs. But this is what they do. Oh, I'm going to I know, I'll send a tweet. I'll send an email. Ooh, I'm big. I'm bold. I'm brave. I'm an asshole. Oh, my God. And then I loved it when Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco issued a memo to the Justice Department staff detailing what this new investigative unit is going to be. And this morning, Garland and Lisa Monaco, and I love it because she's an African-American woman, talk about justice, at least visual justice, But they were joined at the announcement by Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta, who is Indian American, and Kristen Clark. I'm sorry, Kristen Clark is the one, the African-American woman who's the head of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. So hip, hip, who goddamn Ray, right? A white man, an African-American woman, an Indian-American woman, and I'm not sure about Lisa Monaco, but there they were. That is America. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored, fun and frivolity.